it. So you're in charge, Dewey.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Schmudgeon of Curmudgeon, for a very special edition of Schmudgeon of Curmudgeon. This is going to be a book launch edition for, there we go, Bill Adams' new book coming out tomorrow. It is called Lady Drakeslayer. But before we get right into that, I want to welcome everybody to the screen here. Alex and Tim, thank you for showing up.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I see Love's Romantasy is a new sub for
I didn't realize I was still on there. I was doing a buddy read with Bearded Book Beast and some friends, and we were doing Thorns and Roses.
Yeah, bringing it to the Schmudgeon. So
are we already live? I could take that off. No, we're already live.
It's everybody's seen it. You're good.
We'll edit that out in the replay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it, and I don't care. It was a great book. It was awesome.
Did you? The only that's Moss, right? Sarah J. Moss.
Yeah.
The only one I read of hers was Throne of Glass, and it wasn't my
Is that
thing.
not the same? What is that?
No, that's her other. That was like her first story that she wrote when she was like 13 or something like that.
What? Okay, well,
yeah.
So anyway,
to Flame and I got all the Romantasy lined up now.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that one. How are you liking it, Tim? Oh, the fourth wing there.
No, it's surprisingly. I like it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. But that's not why we're here tonight. Tonight we're here to celebrate the book launch for tomorrow. So Bill, give us a lowdown. Are you ready to launch? Is it ready to go?
Sure. Let's hope. Yeah, I don't have an actual copy because I gave it to my dad to read the proof copy.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, Lady Drakeslayer coming out tomorrow. It is the sequel to the Godsblood Tragedy, which I do have right here.
Oh, I have that too.
Yeah, and it's also right behind me, the cover. But yeah, this is everybody's got it. Here we go. So this is book 2. It's a hell of a lot chunkier. It's got a different vibe to the first book. Tim just finished it, so he could talk to that just as well as I can. But it's purposely a different vibe because the first book had a certain trope and vibe I went with, and this one was meant to be different. But yeah, it's ready. It's ready to go, and I am ready for it to be out and for me to not think about it for a few days and not think about this world for a little while because. I've been writing. If you were here, any of you were here with my release of Godsblood, this guy. I've been working on this series for almost 17 years, in one shape or another. So yeah, I'm ready for a little bit of a break on it. But I will say, this book, Lady Drakeslayer, was the main plot was a very separate standalone story I wrote only a couple of years ago. And that's really where I found the plot of the series as it is today, was by writing this standalone separate book. So a lot of the stuff that I wrote, that's in this book, I repurposed and redid into Godsblood. So that's how I was able to go back into Godsblood and do that part. But yeah, ready to be done, for it to be out. And
it's just wild to me that you've been working on this world for longer than ZD's been alive.
Exactly. I mean, he just got his driver's license last week, I think. I don't know. He's probably not even old enough to use swear words, so I don't know how he could be a grimdark author.
Can I ask the first question?
Yeah.
All right. When can we expect book 3?
And I know you're asking that because of how this book ends. It's going to probably be this time next year.
Okay, that's pretty good.
If. No, the idea is I'm gonna take a little bit of a break on this. We're working on Tana 2, the Tenacious Tale of Tana the Tender Sword. this book that me and Dewey co-wrote.
Somewhere.
We're working on that. Dewey's hammering out that first draft, so I'll be doing my bit here soon, and then I want to write something else. I want to dip into a different story, and I will say this is not a spoiler. It comes out as a spoiler in the world, but I just kind of like unintentionally created a Bill verse, if you will, a connected verse with this type of world in the story, because I'm a panster and that just kind of happened. So I have an idea of a story that I want to write that's kind of one of these different worlds. And then I'll finally start going back to book 3. I did start it though, Tim. I have about 40 to 50,000 words of it.
Okay.
Plus, I might actually have like 60,000 because I changed so there's 2 plots in this book in Lady Drakeslayer. There's plot A, which is the Ash plot, the main character plot. And then for the people that have read Godsblood, there's a character named Schmudgeon and there's a character named Finn. That's plot B, that subplot. I had them finish in a different place in my original draft of Lady Drakeslayer. And I ended up taking out probably about 7 or 8 chapters between the 2 of them. Thanks for coming, Pete. Hope the kiddo's feeling better. Croup is bad. Hope it's not too terrible. But yeah, I took out about 7 or 8 chapters. So that's a good 20,000 words of their plot that's going to move to book 3. So maybe I'm farther along than I thought, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say though that you need a palate cleanser. Are you? I mean, just to get your brain out of all this. But before you hit that point, have you revealed the name of the 3rd book to anybody?
It's in the back.
Okay. All right.
And I think I've said it to places, but I can't. I have 2 young kids, so my brain is like mush most of the time. So I'm surprised I can actually handle writing books at this point, especially these big chunky books that have a lot of complexity. But the book 3 is going to be called Shatterstorm.
Okay.
It's one word. It's a place in what's called the Voidlands. And yeah, that's where the main plot's going to be heading towards that location. And there's a lot that's going to happen there. And I have a propensity for ballsy endings. And I have what book 3 is really going to be my Empire. My Empire Strikes Back book. So if you think I was mean to the characters in these first 2 books, it's going to get a whole lot worse.
Are you still planning? Is it going to be a trilogy or 4 books?
4 books.
Oh, okay. I thought you changed that, of course.
Yeah, I went back and forth. It's just, for those who haven't read the book yet, there's these magical seals, and I use the elements, so earth, fire, air, and water. And there's 4 of them. So it just kind of felt right that each book has one seal that the main character is breaking to get to this magical city, these ruins. And it just felt right to do it that way. And 2, the 3rd book would probably push 300,000 words, and I didn't want to go that much.
Wow. That's one thing that I've been meaning to ask you, but I'm going to save that question for a little later because we need to do, as you know, anyone who shows up to the Schmudgeon or Curmudgeon must rate themselves as a curmudgeon. So we have 2 honorary curmudgeons here with us. And so I'm going to include you in the mix here if you have time. I know, Tim, you mentioned you might need to get off a little bit, so I want to get your curmudgeon before you do. Let's go over here to my screen and share it so y'all can see here. So I have my curmudgeon scale up. Can y'all see that? There we go. Rate yourself from handsome Squidward all the way up to I'm done, Skidward. So I want to let's start with Alex. Alex, how are you today?
I'm a 9. I'm curmudgeonly today.
Whoa! Welcome. Why are you a 9 today, Alex? What's going on with you?
Work stuff.
Yeah.
I needed my boss on an important phone call, and it didn't happen. So yeah, it was not good, and my fence blew down in the windstorm. So.
Yikes! All right, well that's worthy of a 9. I'm right there with
That
you.
Texas power grid, man, you got it. The van tip over. Is that what happened?
No offense.
What about you, Tim? Where are you?
This might surprise you. I'm a solid 10 right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa!
This is
I
a
work
good
in-
show already.
I work in financial markets, and I currently want to die. So
Oof.
that's all I'll
Yeah.
say about that.
How about those
Oh.
tariffs?
It's been hectic. to say the
I'm
least.
sure.
Oh.
I'm sure.
Man, that surprises me. But I understand. I guess, Bill, I need to ask you, where are you?
I would probably put me at a solid 8. And the only reason why I'm not higher is because this book's coming out tomorrow. So that's
Wow.
a thing off my shoulders. But I'll tell you what, though. I learned this week with my 3-year-old goblin. I really, the touching thing, like always touching, like when you're trying to eat dinner, is like I never noticed it when my wife has that, but we've gone out a couple times this week at like a restaurant, and he's just like hanging on me. I'm like, why are you touching me? Why are you always touching me? Why are you always touching me? It was just like, now I get it. Now I get it.
And then you don't want to
that
tell
was-
them, get off, leave me alone, because they're bababies, and they're
Yeah, they
like,
don't
oh,
know.
you don't love me anymore.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, he would, especially in a restaurant. Because
Aw.
then they'll do the thing, and you're about to learn this, Alex. You got about 2 years before this is going to hit you. But and Lamia in the chat with Wildflower got a couple years there. They'll call you out in public, and you have to like get that awkward face when other people are looking at you, and you're like, no, I really didn't hit them, even though they're like, stop hitting me, and you're like, no, I didn't really hit them. But they act like you punched them in the face.
Oh gosh. Well, when I was growing up, of course, and I grew up a long time ago, they would actually hit us, so parents would smack. I told you to sit down, and be like, oh. So all you younger folks out there, you dodged one growing up. Okay, let's see.
You walked so we can crawl, huh? Or
I
you crawled
guess
so we can
so.
walk, or whatever that phrase is.
I'm gonna surprise y'all. I'm in a pretty good mood
Nice.
today.
What?
I think I'm-
What? I think
Show
this is the lowest
over.
I've ever seen
We're
Dewey.
done.
Well, it's balanced.
I'd say about
you can't-
7.
You can't have
Yeah.
4 10s.
Although that can change pretty quickly. So let's see how tonight goes, and I'll readjust it. Wow. So we're pretty close to Squidward here, being done with things. All right. Well, let me stop sharing because I want to get back to the book. I did bring the back of the book here. I wanted people to kind of see, what it actually was about. And
Do a dramatic reading, Dewey.
I was gonna
Yeah,
I was gonna see
You got the voice.
should I read this for y'all? Because I think if you haven't read it or don't know anything about the story, this is gonna get you pumped for it. So I'll read it. There we go.
Yeah, dramatic.
So never forget the truth of who you are. So an orphan, having uncovered the truth of her past, shuns the destiny of the blood coursing her veins. Despite slaying a goddess, the path to eminence slowly shackles her as the other seals beckon. A drake, burdened by the loss of his ward, can think of none more unworthy to bear the holy horns of a ward keeper. Hounded by failure, he clings to the hope of repaying the god's faith. A princeps, saddled by grief, drowns his sorrow at the bottom of a mug. Hounded by the specter of his dead beloved, he shrinks from his duty, only to be drawn into the fight for his homeland. A captain, fearless, dashing, and egoless, remains as confident and committed to enhancing her renown, but her legend may end abruptly when she takes on her most damnable contract to date. Old nemesis return. Age-old plans rekindle. A demon horde marches on the golden throne of Calderon, while the blood drake hunts another seal in the city of sin. Split and broken by their failings, each must rise. But one thing remains. Blood rules all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yay.
Guys.
Before I forget, now, Tim, that quote up at the top, never forget the truth of who you are, that was from your review of God's Blood. I don't even remember writing that quote, and that was the one you picked out. Quote. That was the one you picked out and put in the review, and I was like, that's actually a pretty damn good line.
You know what's like funny is like that wall of text is absolutely incomprehensible to anyone who's never read the books. But like I know everything in that like all those words mean.
Like I know everything except who's the princess?
Or
princess Finn.
That's the joke.
Finn. Oh, sorry. I actually have no idea what that is either. Sorry. I figured it was like a made-up military title.
No, it's a Latin term for prince.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. The princeps. That was let's go back to the front. I want to talk about the cover. Tell us about the cover. Tell us about. Huh? Yeah, it looks really nice. Really Who did this? Who did it? And it certainly wasn't me.
Well, no offense. It's done by who I consider the GOAT, the greatest of all time with book covers. King, he's the king. Felix Ortiz. He did the God's Blood cover as well, which I got blown up in the print. I also got Lady Drakeslayer in a print, but I haven't put it on the wall yet. But yeah, he did this cover, and I told him the scene. This is a pivotal scene in the book.
It's the best scene in the whole book, I think, in my opinion.
It's a very good. So if you haven't read the first book solely takes place in one city. This book takes place basically in two cities. The main plot A takes place in my world's version of Las Vegas. It's Old Port Basin is the name of the city, but I call it Port Sin. And it's basically Vegas. And there's an arena here where they do a lot of bloodletting and stuff like that. And there's a scene where obviously our main character has to face off with my world's version of an arrow vern, or it's called an arrow vern, but it's a wyvern. A lot of stuff happens in this scene. A lot of action, a lot of explosions, also a lot of growth for the main character, actually, surprisingly. And it was one of the, when I was writing this story as the standalone, like this was the first scene I had in my brain, was like, I just want to see a scene where they're in an arena and the main character has to fight a dragon. Like that just hit me as like a scene would be awesome, right? And so this scene, when I was trying to think of covers of like what I would want on the cover, I told Felix, I was like, I want this scene where the dragon and the main character are facing off in an arena. And that's all I told him. The color red is important because, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's elemental magic. So this book is about the fire, the fire seal. So I wanted red, and I was like, yeah, just go wild with it. And he comes back with this image of the dragon face, in front, and the character facing us. Because normally most of the time when you look at or see covers, and even on God's Blood, which you're looking at the back from the point of view of the character, looking at something at the horizon or looking at whatever. And this one's the exact opposite. And when Felix showed this to me, I was like, dead. Like I fell over, and I couldn't wait to show these guys that, in our private chats and everything. And I was just like, look at this. Like, what the hell? And, I think he's going to do a bomb job on the next 2 covers, but I don't know if he's going to surpass this one. I'd be shocked if he does, because this one is just so cool.
When can we get hardcovers or dust jackets?
So I submitted the hardcover dust jacket to Ingram yesterday. So as long as it doesn't take 18 days like yours did, Tim, I am actually setting up a direct sales site on the website. So hopefully I'm going to finish that tonight after we get off here, and open it up tomorrow. If not tomorrow, it'll be in the next couple of days. I'll have opportunity to do hardcover with the dust jacket, similar to Godsblood, and then I'll do this pre-order thing, and I'll do the sprayed edges again. I'm gonna.
Are you?
I'm gonna send state and do the sprayed edges again.
I have 2 sprayed edges.
What have you learned? You have not.
It's like,
I was going to say, you haven't learned your lesson, have you, Bill? Those sprayed covers were.
No, I think I have a better understanding of how that works at this point.
Okay.
I hope. But, you guys will probably hear about it in the chat, how angry I am and how proud I am that I did it.
Is it going to be red? Is it going to be that dark red?
Yeah, it's got to be red.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
It'll be red.
Awesome.
It'll be
awesome.
red.
So, I have questions for you. Now, some of these were submitted by some folks. I think Alex may be one of them that submitted. I think Nick in the chat submitted a couple of questions, but there's not. I have 10 questions. I have some asked from them, but I would love to ask you some of them. Guys, I wasn't too sure who was showing up tonight, so I made these tailored towards Lady Drakeslayer and Bill. But,
well, it's night, so I mean, that makes
so it
sense.
might. So I'm going to have him answer the questions, but some of them are pretty general. So let me present my screen here. I'm still going to have you spin just so it's super random. There we go. So I'm going to have you spin, and I don't have anything special as an extra. So I guess number.
Oh,
the dragon! Woo!
Hey.
Okay. All right.
Perfect.
So let's see what the dragon has to say. If one of your characters wrote a tell-all memoir about you, what embarrassing detail would they absolutely include?
About me?
Yeah, because the characters, but they know you as well. So what would they
Well,
tell about
obviously-
you?
what would Nina say about you?
I was going to say the writer is definitely going to be Nina.
Yeah.
Which, Tim, did you enjoy that recap from Nina?
Oh,
Nina's
absolutely. Yeah,
character?
I mentioned that in the review. That was brilliant. And I liked how her chapter titles were always kind of changing with what was going on with her.
Yeah,
was
I mean,
really
she's
clever.
egoless, right?
Yeah. I didn't really think she'd play such a big part in the story, but she was awesome.
Yeah, she's going to get bigger. in book 3. Like I said, things are going to happen. Oh, God, embarrassing detail. Well, there's too many of those. We could say one good story is there's a lot to it, but I will say there was one night in college I was very inebriated. I somehow fell down some stairs and cut open my chin. Ended up in the hospital. Got home after a long time there getting stitches, and my roommate is passed out on the couch, right? Or sleeping on the couch. He was sober that night. And I go, why are you sleeping on the couch? And he goes, there's a mouse in my bedroom. So for the next 3 days after this, by the way, I had like a neck brace on and stuff. It was basically like the movie Mouse Hunt in our bedroom. And me and my roommate could not, we tried to trap him in the closet. We were trying to drop books on him. And we couldn't figure it out for 3 days. And then finally my one friend came over with a tennis racket, and he was there for 2 minutes and knocked this thing out and just threw it out the window, and it thwarted us for 3 days. It was a fantastic story. He didn't kill it. It was still alive.
He just whacked it and threw it out the window.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he didn't throw it. He like picked it up and moved it outside, but it was like it was an embarrassing story, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, apparently I was on video talking about the Louisiana Purchase for some reason.
Do you have any hot takes on the Louisiana Purchase?
No, not really. Not really.
Talk about current events.
Yeah, I don't know.
Look, Dewey, not everyone's as young as EB here, okay? So.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, well, I guess that would be included, and it would have to be Nina LaFleur. She's.
Yep.
I've told Bill this. She and Logan are both my favorite characters. I really like Logan because he's a big puffball, and he's mine. Anyway, all right. Well, let's do one more. Randomize this. 6. All right, Candelabra. Let's see. What's one of your protagonists and a favorite childhood cartoon character are now a crime-fighting duo. Who are they, and how doomed is the world?
Oh gosh,
First of all, who would be a favorite cartoon character from your childhood?
Darkwing Duck.
Dude, I was thinking that too. That's so weird that we both thought went there.
I mean, Darkwing Duck was such a good show, so underrated.
Yeah, and a really good opening theme too.
Darkwing Duck,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, dangerous. Darkwing Duck. But see, the world is not doomed though. If he's in charge, so it doesn't really fit. But I mean, you could do him and Nina would be a good.
Oh yeah.
Good combo. Not really, but it would be a fun show.
Oh man. So all right. Well, those are my 2 questions so far. We'll come back to this here because I want to hear more about some of your writing process. So
nobody wants to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you because you've had by this point, this is your 4th book. So 3 books, 1 novella. So now you've hit your 4th book versus thinking back to Tana when we first did Tana and the whole process to get everything published to now. How would you describe, has the process improved for you? Are you liking it any better as far as like getting the actual physical book made? Have you improved at all? Have you?
Well, I learned how to format myself. But this time was god awful. Atticus, the tool that I used this time around. I don't know what they were smoking or drinking when they made that last update in December. They ruined everything. I don't know what they did, but it makes the ebook look good. So I guess
I looked great when I was reading it.
There's that.
Especially all the little pictures and stuff. I really did enjoy that.
Those are Dewey's.
Yeah, I know. I could tell his art style.
The character art was his daughter Zoe. But no, I would say, and I don't want to sound jaded, but like it's not as exciting is not the right word, but it's more of like, hey, I got it done. I'm ready to get this book out. It's not as like the weight's off my shoulders a little bit, and now I feel a little bit less tight, a little tense, a little stressed, less stressed. Whereas I didn't know what the hell we were doing with Tana, so it was kind of like everything hit us at the same time, and like we didn't know what we were doing. This one you kind of have after a while you kind of have to process down a little bit, like, oh, you need to make sure you do this, you need to make sure you do that, you need to make sure this is ready. Like even when I released Godsblood, I didn't pay attention to the dates because I thought, you know how for all those authors out there that use KDP, you have to submit your books by a certain amount of time for it to be live by the date you choose. Well, you can't do pre-order on physicals. So like the ebook, you just say, hey, save and put up for pre-order and you're done. As long as you have the EPUB or whatever like uploaded. Whereas in the physicals, you actually have to go in and approve it and set it to be able to be released. It's not the same structure as the ebook. So I didn't know that with God's Blood, because you did all the work with KDP and Fortana and figured that part out. And I didn't know that. So God's Blood, the physical, wasn't ready the same day as ebook release. Whereas this time, obviously I know that. But each book has its own trials and tribulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's also kind of harder. And Tim, maybe you could talk to this because you've got almost 5 books out now. With one book, you're just promoting one book. But when you have multiple books in multiple different series, you kind of have to promote and market them differently. So it's kind of like all over the place right now.
And that's even more strange for you because you have absolute different books. Like Tana and God's Blood are not anything close to each other.
Nope.
But I kind of I go back and forth between which one I'm going over. And it's like I've been promoting the hell out of Platinum Tinted Darkness because the relaunch.
Yeah.
And while that's going on, Whisper's doing really good without any help. So I'm just pretty lucky.
Well, I mean, you're a finalist in Sphinx competition, so that's also congrats on that, by the way. But
thank you.
That's probably doing wonders for you.
Yeah, because I feel like it has 72 ratings on Goodreads, and it's surreal to me because I've pretty much just threw it on Sphinx, and that's all I did. And meanwhile,
I remember
I went nuts with this. I'm in giveaways, I'm in deals. It's been such a nightmare.
I mean, I remember with Whisper when you were about to launch it, you're like, everybody's going to hate this book. Nobody's going to like it. And the exact opposite has happened, like I knew it would, because it's such a great novella. And you were like, I don't think anybody's going to like it. I'm like, no, Tim.
Yeah, I kind of made it so much easier though, because if it was a total failure, who cares?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's a weird, weird thing to go with.
Well, I'm gonna go back to the questions because I want to make sure and get some of the questions that we had submitted.
I gotta hop off.
Alrighty.
Thank
you, Tim, for coming.
I'll talk to you later. I'll try to hop in the chat in a bit.
Yeah, no worries.
Bye.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you, buddy.
You too.
Alrighty. And if we don't get, okay, I think 4 is 1. Alrighty, number 4. That's going to be the key. Which character is your favorite to write and why? That was these are one of the questions that was submitted by some friends. I think
this one was mine. And which character
yours? Okay.
is your favorite to write and why is it Nina? Is the real question.
Okay, so for those who haven't read it yet, so the first book, Nina LaFleur is a character. She's there, but she
very much a side character. She appears a couple times, and
she's barely there. She plays a role in the prologue, and she has one scene in the middle of the book, and then she has one scene towards the end. Not as a POV, she's definitely a side character. In Lady Drakeslayer and the rest of the series, she becomes a point of view character. And Nina is basically a female version of Jack Sparrow with a much fouler mouth and a little bit more narcissistic.
I kind of feel like she's a little bit more put together than Jack Sparrow too, though.
Well, yes, because she's a narcissist. And she doesn't realize she's a narcissist, which is funny because she thinks she's very egoless, and she thinks she's not she thinks she's humble. So, but she's really, really fun to write because her point of view is very unreliable, and her crew that you meet in here, she has a very interesting relationship with all of her crew members. I have these 2 hobgoblin that you do meet in God's Blood, the opening chapter. They're called Zig and Zag. They're hobgoblin twins, and they look alike, and she can never tell them apart. So that's one of the shticks that she has in her chapters. Whenever Zig and Zag are there, she never names them properly, and then yells at them for not being who she thinks it is. So she's just fabulous to write. But I will say, the character Finn becomes a point of view character in Lady Drakeslayer too. He's not a POV, but he's a big part of God's Blood. he's a fun character to write too, because he's also kind of vain. But in this book, he starts off in a not great mental place because of what happened in book 1. So he's just really fun to write as well.
Who was Finn again? Is that rabbit character?
No, Finn was Emra's boyfriend, basically.
Oh, okay.
He's the prince from the Golden Throne, my version of Elf, who's just
right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's.
Least favorite, though, unfortunately, is Logan. I will say that.
Really?
And the only reason why is because he's too honorable, and like he's like the one honorable person in my world, like really honorable, like truly honorable person, and he's not funny. He doesn't try to be funny. He doesn't try to be anything other than just like the honorable Drake. You know, he's a in my world I have what's called the Draken. They're anthropomorphic dragon type lizard people, basically, and he's a little dry, so it's kind of hard to write him.
He's kind of timid too, so he doesn't always take the exciting route.
Exactly. Even though he had my favorite scene in Godsblood, though, where he's climbing the chains.
That's a fantastic scene. I remember that, and I do really like him.
I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying, like, out of like the POVs to write, he's usually the hardest one for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Just because he's not spicy. He's fluffy. Okay, I rolled a 1.
The cinnamon roll.
What's your planning process behind these absolute chonkers of books? Is this you, Alex? This is not
no.
yours,
This
right?
one wasn't me.
Okay, this is Nick. Nick, are you in the chat still? I think this was Nick's.
Although I approved the question.
Well, okay, so
So it's watching movies and then taking the little bits you like from each of the movies and just throwing them together. And
I mean, okay, so here's the thing. For those of you who don't know, this series is a combination of 2 standalone stories and my original trilogy that I wrote back in the day. So it's got plot points of 3 different book series that I had. And I combined them all because I found myself writing somewhat similar magic systems where I'm just the child of Final Fantasy. So like elemental magic, crystals, blood magic type stuff like that all somehow seeped into all 3 of these stories. So hence my Bill verse is I introduced in this book. But planning wise, it was what characters do I need and why? God's Blood is a chunky book. This is 630 total pages. Lady Drakeslayer is 717, so almost 100 pages more. But it's really like, and like when I was, I've talked to you about this, Alex, like what can I possibly cut? There's really not much I could possibly cut without like cutting something that builds up in there with these chapters and stuff. So my process is, what's the end point? What characters do I need? And I have a lot of them, obviously. And what beats do they need to hit as character growth? Because I do have a lot of character growth for the people that do make it. Spoiler alert, not all of my characters make it in either book. And that's going to happen throughout the series. I knock people off left and right. But I need them to have arcs. Like there's really like, even when I was talking to Alex about this, I have a point of view character in God's Blood that was a POV for only three scenes, and he kind of becomes a side character towards the end. And that was unintentional, but it worked out in my favor because of what I do with, or what I did with this character as a whole, and how I utilize it in this second book. I don't want to spoil that part, but it allowed me to do something that I hadn't intended. So I am a pantster with a little bit of plotting. I don't do long outlines. I don't do, world building I do because obviously this is a big, broad world. But yeah, the plotting, I let the characters tell me what needs to happen and where they need to go. Awful lot. And that's a detriment and also a great thing. But it does end up happening. Like if I had planned for, say, a character to make it into book 3 and book 4 as a point of view, and I end up whacking them in these first 2 books, which has happened, I have to change my series arc for what that was going to be. But if that's what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. Like I can't be beholden to something just because I want that character to make it to the end. Like I needed to tell the story the way the story should be. So long story short,
do you identify with that, Alex, as a adult fantasy writer yourself? Like, do you identify with that process?
Well, the process, no. The surprise a character makes it or doesn't make it, yes, it's actually happened to me in my book as well, where I had previously killed a character off and I got some early feedback that no, you absolutely must save this character. I was like, you know what? I could have a role for him in the second book. So I wrote him back in. So I kind of feel the pain of, having to kind of change your mind about arcs and where things are going based on, where the characters end up. But from the structural point of view, I feel like I'm a lot more strict of an outliner than Bill is. But
you most likely are. It's kind of funny. Pete's not here, but Pete was asking me, because we talk in our chat all about like how we do our processes and stuff. So he messaged me on the side. He's like, how does your outline look? And it was the day after, on Monday, you and I talked, Dewey? Was that Monday?
Yeah, it was Monday.
We talked about
Monday.
Tana too, and I'm sorry to throw you under the bus here, Dewey, but me and Dewey have complete opposite styles with it. Dewey's outline is quite long, but he likes to put in a lot of detail in his outlines. He puts in sentences.
You could essentially take my outline and make it and just rewrite it as a chapter.
Yeah. Whereas my outline is literally 4, maybe 5, 6 words. It's the 2 or 3 most important things that have to happen in it. Like intro this character, fight this character, find this object or whatever. Like just that simple is what my outline looks like. And Pete, I was telling Pete this, and he goes, oh, yours is far more simple than what some of these other people keep telling me I have to do. And I'm like, dude, do what you find will work for the best for you. Yeah. Like there is no set way to do this. Whatever gets you to write the story. But then, also keep in mind that, if you are not so much of an outliner, you have to remember that you have to make sure everything is cohesive.
And there's going to be some rewriting involved, and you're going to have to figure out your
motivation,
arcs and stuff in the end.
Growth, and yeah, so it's not just easy to say, oh, I don't do a outline, but yeah, that you're going to put a little bit more work probably in your editing phase.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bill and I, we do have different approaches to this, but the genre I'm writing, or rather the age group I'm writing for, the story structure is different anyway, and it kind of requires this whole world for the characters to live in and move versus what with the adult fantasy works that you're writing, you can jump into a character and see what happens, and it's just it's a different approach. But when Bill told me the other night, I keep it all up here in my brain. I'm like, oh no, that does not work for me. I got to write it down because my brain will hit the point where it's too full, and then I'll just go take a nap or something. And,
well, I mean, there's stuff that you have to put down. Like I have my spreadsheets and I have my like lore, but I think like the important stuff, and I know Greg's not in the chat. Greg JG Terrell, I beta read his final book of his trilogy, and one of his characters had lost a limb in book 2, and
spontaneously grew back a limb in book 3.
Yeah, in book 3 had both limbs, and I was like, no, you got to make sure that that's gone. So like that type of stuff you have to remember, like that I write down. Like when certain things happen like that, I make sure to keep on my spreadsheet just so I remember that type of specificity, which is going to happen because in the prologue I set up that some bad things happen. Like I do a framing device in this opening, so the story had already happened, so you're seeing the aftermath in the prologue, and they're replaying the story throughout, in that type of style, so you already know going in that some shit happened, and that's going to be fun to remember when I started writing book 3. Like the few that I did read, I was like, okay, gotta remember that shit happened and keep that in mind and write it appropriately.
Well, yeah, and you're also, you're going to have a pretty good break between now and, I mean, I know you're writing in book 3, but still, we're going to have a nice break.
It's going to be a break. It's going to be a few months, if not 5 or 6 months before I touch this. I need to, like, I love this series. This is my, like, baby, so to speak. Like I said, I've been writing it for 17 years in one form or the other, but I need to step away to refill that creative well, just to get back into it. And like I said, book 3 is really going to be my Empire book, Empire Strikes Back book. So it's going to be very important that I pull that one off really, really well. Like, awesome. Obviously I want to end well with book 4, but like, I want that one, book 3, to be my, like, the crescendo almost. And then book 4 will be like a good, steady, not like drop off, hopefully not a drop off, but like, a good, steady conclusion.
Right.
An exciting climax to the series.
Yes. Yes. Which I have everything planned out up here.
Yeah. That's see, I don't think you define that as a pantser. I really don't. I think you have it planned. Everything's planned. Yeah,
but how I'm going to get there is a lot. It's going to be a voyage of discovery. But you also have to remember though, Dewey, is I wrote the original trilogy back in 2015. I finished it, and that the last, these 2 books, those arcs, or the main plot arcs, are going to be there, and that's where it's going to finish, in those beats. And no, Nick, I don't have as many plans as Dave, and
that's impossible. No one can have as many plans as Dave,
and I haven't failed as many of those plans either.
Oh my god, poor Dave. He was gonna
no, poor Dave. He's not here to defend himself.
He was going to show up, but he couldn't. Okay, so before I pass this, before we stop doing this, I am going to jump to number 3. I think, Alex, this one's yours. I'm just going to skip this because I want to make sure and get to your question. Is this yours?
Yeah, this one's mine too.
Okay, yeah. You've got themes of life, death, and rebirth in TGT and LD. Did you plan the story around these themes, or were they discovered as part of the writing process? Okay, so it's kind of a continuation here.
So, in the original trilogy, the rebirth idea was there from the get-go. And it was always intended to, how do I phrase this without spoiling it? I always had the intent of the gods falling, or being, like, not really falling, but kind of being replaced by a new god. I mean, obviously this title of the book series is called The Divine Gods Queen Coda. So it's the Gods Queen is going to be, like, if you read the book, that's what's going to happen is there's going to be a rebirth of the gods, like a type of thing. So rebirth has always been a part of it. Life and death has always been a part of it too. In my original trilogy, a different version of the Ash character was able to do some of the stuff that the Ash character in this series goes, like she gets to go into like the realm of death. That Ash version always had that. And then in the original trilogy, there was the Bryn character, which is Ash's real name in the current version. I actually combined those two characters into one. So I combined the life and the death character into one character in this series, as opposed to being two separate ones. But yes, I always had the main villain, Luhar, the Fallen is his name. That's always been from the beginning, the very beginning. He was always a demon horde master and rebirthing demons from hell, basically. That was always there. The idea of the crystals being life and death of giving to the world actually came from a separate story that I wrote that I pulled into this one. That's where the God's King and the City of Eminence, the floating City of Eminence came from. And also the rune magic came from that story as well, with the crystals and all that stuff. So yes, it's always been there into this version.
Very cool.
I remember the stories. I remember when we first started Critique Partnering, and the stories of the separate stories that you had, and that's going to be one of my questions. We only have 9 more minutes or so I don't want to linger too much. But one of my questions is, you mentioned writing adjacent stories to this world now that you've built. I'm just curious, what is the idea? Like, what are you going for with one of these other stories?
Oh, in the Billverse, as you said?
Yeah, in the Billverse.
So because these story ideas that I've had brewing for years, there's always been that basis. That's kind of why I pulled it into this one big series anyway. There's always been like a basis of life and death magic. There's always been a basis of like these life-giving crystals. I'm also writing it under the pen name of J.G. Terrell. He's coming out with this book called The Cracks of the Deepest Black. That's actually my story, because there's crystals in there. And
I was gonna say you're barely released the second one. Have you already got copycat writers? So.
I know, right? But no, those. So yeah, it's not going to be full on Cosmere style, Brandon Sanderson Cosmere style. I'm not gonna. Or the intent right now is not going to like combine these worlds into like one big massive story. I just like have these adjacent potential worlds now that I sort of just pantsed into this when I was writing that scene that this kind of like evolved from. But it works. It does work. So some of the stories I have are going to be more sci-fi based. Some will be more traditional fantasy based. Whereas this series is more sci-fantasy, so I want to play with the different types of genres and stuff, different types of stories. One of them is actually a prequel story to this world, to Ash's world. Takes place hundreds of years before, and I actually hint at it in this book. It's a Logian scene. It's going to be about another Draken, like a famous Draken story, but it's going to be a horror, psychological horror, almost in the vein of, I'm calling it my 13th Warrior meets the Descent. They're gonna get their group of warriors to go into this underground cavern, and there's going to be like the Descent, where there's people, like different monsters in the dark, and I want it to be a psychological horror. So I want a much different vibe in that, just to flex myself really as a writer.
All right, I'm going to ask this question since Nick is still here. If you could take a car selfie with your book in any car, what car would it be?
Well,
And there's some we need context for this.
So Mr. Alexander, Nick Alexander, is known as the car selfie guy. He always takes car selfies with his fog-bound book. Well, let's just say this: if I could take a car selfie, it will never, ever, ever be anywhere near a Cybertruck. So that is well off the list. Those things are ugly. Those are the ugliest cars I've ever seen in my life. But if I can do it in any car, anywhere, it would be an Aston Martin DB5, 1960s. James Bond.
Yeah.
Goldfinger car. That would be the ideal place to take a car selfie.
Awesome. Yeah, that you can't go wrong with that one at all. So, well, we're coming up on the end of the time, but I have one more question for you to answer. If I can get you to answer the following, which is, who give your pitch. Like, if you love blah blah blah, you will love Lady Drakeslayer. Like, who is this for?
I don't even know anymore at this point. Apparently, it's very Malazan. I never made it through Malazan, so I don't know. ZB likes to think it's very Dune meets Borderlands, the first book. So I really don't know. So the way I describe Lady Drakeslayer, though, it's more of a fantasy noir. There's a mystery vibe to the main plot. So if you like that, and then obviously the secondary plot is very siege war type with demons and fun stuff. So if you like long books, if you want books that are have a lot of words in there, a lot of lore. I don't handhold, so if you like to not be handheld, I use complex
epic fight scenes.
There's fight
very
scenes.
Good, like movie in your mind. The best of good old 90s and 2000s action movies.
A lot of blood.
A lot of blood.
There's blood bats and blood bats. One word and two word blood bats. So yes, it's dark. It's a dark fantasy world. I don't consider it grimdark, but I wouldn't say it's noble bright or grim bright or whatever those terminologies are. It's a dark fantasy. It's adult. There's a lot of adult themes. Not all my characters make it. That's for damn sure. Yeah, I'm bad at these pitches. Why do you think I never got an agent?
Well,
Bill, do you like words? This has lots of them in it.
Yes. This one, the Lady Drakeslayer, has 189,000 of them. So yeah, if you like words, there's a lot of them.
It's an investment, that's for sure. Well, awesome, guys. I think we need to wrap it up. And by the way, you mentioned noble bright and noble dark and all those terms that confound me. I think we need to maybe have another our next Schmudgeon be like, let's define all these words that people made up to define these book categories.
We'll have to get Andrew D. Meredith on because he's the one that knows them. I don't know.
Well, we need a chart and a graph of some kind. Like, okay, so
I posted a chart at some point. I'll have to dig through my Twitter.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So there is, okay, all right. See, because there's people like me who hear that and go, noble pride. Okay, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, where can you find the book, Bill? And then we're heading out.
Well, it'll be on the Capital A Overlord, available tomorrow, everywhere. Ebook and paperback.
We all worship him.
Yeah, we all worship him. But no, I am trying to finalize a website for our Will Wraith Press website to be able to sell direct. I mentioned it earlier. I am doing a hardcover with the dust jacket, like I did with this, with Godsblood, and I will sell it there. I'm hoping to finish it after this, so then we can have it for this launch. But if I win my battle with that website, we'll find out. But it will be available soon. And yeah,
Awesome.
happy reading.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to Schmudgeon of Curmudgeon. Willoway Press.
In the link below.
Like and subscribe in the link below. We have the link to Willoway Press. Alex is a member of Willow Wraith. So we got all your information up there too, right? Bill, it's all updated.
Yes, I have updated the website. So now Mr. Alexander, Tim was part of it. Tim Wolf, who was on earlier, Alex. Yeah, they're all on there, and I'm gonna still have to update their book section. But yes, that will be there too to get to their books. But yes, go to our website, like us.
Awesome.
And go buy Lady Drakeslayer tomorrow.
Yes. Well, if you want to.
No, required.
No.
Required. Yeah, I don't. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks for having me, Dewey and Alex. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate you guys and everybody that joined in the chat. And hopefully, Lamia, Little Wildflower is not too fussy. And Alex, hopefully Kirby Jr. sleeps through the night.
I hope so.
Good night, everybody.